Coming up on Market Shares, the Biden administration has announced a $5 billion investment plan.
And some of the biggest sports streaming services have announced a merger.
And another great week for the markets. We will break down what happened in all the major indexes. Hold on to your wallets because Market Share starts right now. Welcome into Market Shares. I'm Zach Richter, in for Bradley Hoppenstein.
And I'm Peyton Spellacy. We have a big week this week with the three indexes. S&P made a milestone. We have a lot to get to, so let's get to our first story.
And we have those market movers later in the show. But first, big changes are coming to the AI world. Meta will begin labeling images created by OpenAI, Midjourney, and other artificial intelligence products. The label set to roll out in the coming months will identify AI-generated images that have been posted on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads.
To address this issue, Meta will add a feature that allows users to voluntarily, keyword there, voluntarily label audio or video as AI when uploaded. The labels, however, will not be a perfect solution.
And this comes as the risks posted by the AI-generated content have stoked wide concern in recent weeks. Well, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is seeking not billions, but trillions of dollars in investments to overhaul the global semiconductor industry. Altman has long talked about the supply and demand problems with AI chips, with many AI giants want them, but there are not enough to go around, which limits AI's growth.
The businessman would need to raise between 5 and 7 trillion for the endeavor. He hopes this will allow OpenAI to compete with Nvidia, which is currently controls 80% of the AI chip market with a current market cap of around 1.7 trillion, not far from the overtaking tech giants such as Amazon and Alphabet. And CBS, as you can see there on your screen, has reported fourth quarter revenue that has topped expectations on its strength in the health service business. The company also cut its full-year profit outlook, citing higher medical costs that are dogging the broader insurance industry.
In Peyton, the company lowered its 2024 adjusted earnings forecast to at least $8.30 per share, down from a previous guidance of at least $8.50 per share. CVS says its new guidance follows a review of its medical cost trend analysis and, quote, potential implications for elevated medical costs in the coming year.
Thanks, Zach. Spotify users, listen up. The music company is showing promising signs of increased profitability despite Q4 earnings miss. Revenue grew 16%, helped by a price increase in the second half of 2023, as well as a growing ad business. The company ended the year with 602 million monthly active users and 23% rise from a year earlier. Spotify can also attribute this growth to an increase in its investments in podcasting. One deal in particular has been reported to be worth up to $250 million with podcaster Joe Rogan.
And also, the car company Ford has topped fourth quarter estimates while forecasting better than expected results for the coming year. The automaker shares were up roughly 6%, adding to a 4.1 increase to close at around $12 earlier this week. Now, Ford CEO Jim Farley described last year as a, quote, foundational year for the automaker, calling out several cost improvements as well as the introduction of hybrid vehicles, which the company expects to increase sales by at least 40% this year.
And switching gears to another car company, Honda has recalled over 750,000 vehicles in the United States over a defect involving airbags, which could go off unintentionally during a crash. The recall includes certain Honda Pilot, Accord, and Civic vehicles from the 2020 through 2022 model years, and some Honda CR-V and Passport vehicles from 2020 and 2021. This is not the first recall from the company this year. Back in December, the company recalled 4.5 million vehicles over risks for fuel pump failure.
And if you're looking for a job, Lyft has announced that their drivers will begin to receive at least 70% of the money their clients pay to ride with them. This is part of the rideshare company's efforts to boost pay transparency amid long-running criticism about its driver compensation. Lyft has faced years of legal battles over their compensation practices and their treatment of workers who are generally considered contractors. Now, the rideshare drivers have also complained about low pay and unsafe working conditions.
Now, Zach, we're going to move out of the auto industry. Costco's longtime finance chief is stepping down after 4 decades. Wow. Richard Galanti has been a key figure for the retailer. Costco's chief executive said that, quote, Richard has been the primary Costco voice to Wall Street and others, end quote. Analysts say that he has been crucial to the company's growth. Now, the company's sales have held strong in recent years, even as other retailers have struggled. Taking over this position will be Kroger's former finance chief, and he's set to begin next month. And the White House is rolling out a major investment in emerging technologies. $5 billion will be headed into the workforce development in the microchip manufacturing. Joining us now with the details from this announcement is market shares analyst Luke Radel. Luke, $5 billion is a lot of money. Where is this all going to go?
Peyton and Zach, it's great to be with you. A lot of that money is expected to help out right here in central New York. Now, in case you haven't heard, a microchip manufacturer called Micron is coming right here in the next few years, and they have promised to have 50,000 jobs come in their wake. But in order to fill all of those positions, companies will need employees that are trained and prepared for those jobs of the future. That is why the Biden White House is adding itself to a long list of government entities investing in workforce development programs to ensure the people here in central New York are ready to go when Micron arrives. New York Governor Kathy Hochul was also in Syracuse earlier this week to announce $200 million in workforce development along the I-90 corridor. She calls the investment our, quote, on-ramp to the future. And those workforce development programs will be centered around educational institutions like ours here at Syracuse University and community colleges like OCC, where President Biden visited in the fall of 2022. Here's what he had to say then about the high stakes of this Micron investment for our region and the United States as a whole.
We're joined today by the CEO of Micron to celebrate their commitment to invest $100 billion over the next 20 years here in America to build factories, to make semiconductors, those small little computer chips that power everything in our everyday lives, from our smartphones to our automobiles to washing machines, hospital equipment, you name it. They're going to build factories the size of, this is not hyperbole, the size of 40 football fields. Big enough to fit the Carrier Dome 4 times inside it and still have space left over.
Now we have Luke joining us here at the desk. Luke, we just talked about where all this money is going to go, but where are these funds actually coming from?
Yeah, the funds are coming from a piece of legislation called the Chips and Science Act, and those chips are not referring to the kind that you get at the grocery store. It's referring to the kind that we have in our phones and in the tablets and in all the technology that we use on a daily basis. Those microchips that are made by companies like Micron. This is money that's being spent off of bipartisan legislation that's meant to improve our competitiveness with other countries like China. China makes a large portion of the microchips that we use in our technology, and we learned during the COVID pandemic that there were serious supply chain issues because we weren't able to get those microchips in from China. The goal of this legislation would be to have those microchips made in America, even right here in central New York.
And Luke, let me stop you there. So it's an election year. There's a lot of politics at play. So how is the president highlighting legislative accomplishments like the CHIPS Act in his re-election campaign?
Yeah, I mean, everything is political these days, right, guys? With just 9 months to go until the 2024 presidential election, Joe Biden running for re-election right now and trying to demonstrate that what he did in his first term can carry over to his second term. He wants to highlight bipartisan accomplishments like the CHIPS and Science Act in that campaign for the presidency. Now, as you guys saw, the Her report came out late last night and talked about the president's potential lack of mental acuity to handle the job. The president has responded to that in a late night press conference by pointing to legislative accomplishments like the CHIPS Act. Take a listen to some of what he had to say.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
That's the main argument out of the Biden White House. If he's not mentally with it, then how has he been able to accomplish these massive bipartisan achievements like the CHIPS and Science Act?
Well, Luke, thanks so much. It's always great having you on the show. After the break, we're going to go over the 3 major indexes and some of the top movers from this week. Stick with us here on Market Shares.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly, a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
And welcome back to Market Shares. We're going to, we are back right now with the look at the 3 major indexes right now. So let's take a look. On your screen right now, you can see that the S&P 500 up 66.4 points this week, up 1.34%, currently around 5,000 points. The Dow up 124.45 points, that's 0.32%. That's 38,500 points. The NASDAQ up 375 points, that's 2.1%, almost 16,000 points.
Yep, Zach, we're seeing a lot of green on our screen, which I have a feeling we are for the rest of the semester, because the Federal Reserve announced that they're lowering interest rates, and the market anticipates that they're going to lower 6 times throughout the year. And if you take a look at that S&P specifically, it's over 5,000, which is an all-time high. It's the first time it's ever happening. And that's really reflective of showing that, you know, the economy is doing well, it's booming. And the key is that lower interest rate. And now we're going to take a look now at our Snapchat. So Snapchat, you know, it missed their revenues and guidance, and you can see it's on the screen right there. Their share price dropped 30%, and they're saying it's bad and it's gonna get even worse. So how is this all happening? Facebook and Google are kind of stealing all these advertisement dollars from Snapchat, so they're just not getting any advertisements, they're not getting the money, and you know, it's not looking good for them, and their future revenue isn't looking good either. It's pretty cheap right now, so I'm expecting it to be bought pretty soon, actually, maybe by Facebook.
And Peyton, moving on with another market mover we have here, we have Southwest. And Southwest earlier this week announcing new seats on the Boeing 737 MAX 8 planes. Those seats are going to be new entirely across the plane. They're going to be all blue. And as a result, they're up 2.37 points this week. That's just under 8%, now at 32.35 points. However, those new seats have been getting some mixed reaction there, because even though they will fit more passengers on the planes, they are what some are calling, quote, paper thin. So definitely something interesting to look there. And now looking at Disney. Disney, one of the biggest market movers of this week, up 11.95 points. That's 12.3.4%. And Disney earlier this week announcing that they will have a new streaming service later this year with Fox and Turner Sports. So definitely a huge thing for Disney that we can look forward to this year.
Yeah, so they reported their fiscal first quarter. They posted some big gains, as you can see there on their screen. The stock is up. They beat on revenue, which is more than what the market expected. And what they're doing is they're getting leaner and they're getting meaner. They are just cutting down costs. They're seeing an increased future guidance. And another big factor, as well as that news that you just mentioned, Zach, is that they took $1.5 billion stake in Epic Games, which owns Fortnite. So that's a big move for them. They're owning pretty much majority of this company now. CEO Bob Iger says, their strong performance shows that they're turning a corner and that they're entering a new era of their company.
Also going to be interesting to see from Bob Iger. He has said in the past year that he's not sure if ABC has a future with being part of the Walt Disney Company. So going to be very interesting to see what Disney chooses to do with ABC and ESPN in the future. But after the break, we'll have more on the upcoming new streaming service that was announced. ESPN, Fox, and Warner Bros. Announcing a joint sports streaming platform later this year. We will unpack what that means for the streaming industry right after the break.
Welcome to my house. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The walls were closing in. Clearly a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It could help you find a little more breathing room.
Welcome back to Market Shares. Many local broadcast station groups plummeted in value this week after Disney, Warner Bros. And Fox announced they'll be launching a joint venture.
Stations such as Sinclair dropped 12% on Wednesday, and Scripps plummeted over 20% following the announcement. Fortunately, the stations are not worried, though.
The joint venture will collaborate all the local broadcast affiliate partners in a similar manner to other digital bundlers, for example, YouTube TV and Hulu. This means that consumers of the new bundle will be able to get their local news and sports from ABC and Fox.
And here to take a closer look on the details of this merger is Market Shares analyst Michael Lamorte. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Well, over the last few years, we've come to accept that cable is out and streaming is in. After all, the idea of having endless amounts of content at your disposal is just, it's exciting. But on the other hand, having so many of these platforms can become overwhelming for sports fans. Many times throughout the sports seasons, fans would have to ask themselves, is this game on NBC tonight or Peacock, Disney Plus or ESPN Plus, and so on. It can get confusing, but that pregame dilemma is about to change. The Mounts announced that streaming platforms Disney Plus and ESPN Plus would be teaming with Fox and Warner Bros. Discovery to launch a joint streaming platform which will give subscribers access to an immense amount of live sports. So what does this mean? Well, what can we expect? We can expect Disney, ESPN, and its sister networks, ESPN2, ESPNU, the SEC network, the ACC network, ESPN News, and ABC will all be on this platform. Warner Bros. Discovery will include its networks like TNT, TBS, and truTV. And Fox will also include the Fox broadcast station along with FS1, FS2, and BTN. Now, as far as the cost for this platform, you can expect it to be pricey. While no number has been set, a monthly subscription in the area of $30 to $50 as an entry-level offer is reasonable. Many of these companies already have their own platforms like Disney Plus, costing in the $20 a month bracket. And since they're joining together for this new sports hub, it just only makes sense for it to be a pretty penny. Disney says it's planning to offer a bundle like Hulu, ESPN Plus, and Disney Plus like they already have, so you might be able to get the bang for your buck that way. Either way, the future of sports streaming is here.
And Michael, so we got those three big companies. We got Warner Bros., we got the Walt Disney Company, and we got Fox. So how is it seems a bit ambitious for multiple industries leading companies for this many on one streaming platform. How is this going to be managed, you think?
Great question, Zach. The streaming platform will actually be ran on a separate, totally different entity, a newly formed company, actually. So Disney, Fox, and Warner Bros. Will each take a 1/3 stake in the company. It's not yet clear if the new company will be publicly traded. It is in the early ages, so it doesn't even have a name yet. The platform is planning to launch next fall, though, so I will be providing updates on Twitter as the story develops and management becomes more clear.
And Michael, what does this mean financially for other sports streaming cables companies that were left out of the deal? Is anyone getting cut out?
Well, as for the companies that were not included in the deal, such as Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV, and Comcast, their stock performance will probably be heavily reliant on a response to this new platform. Netflix is still the leader in streaming with around 208 million paying subscribers and the average revenue per user as well. But Netflix also is facing some competition and slowing growth rate in this course, especially with this new streaming platform announced. The company, though, is just getting its toes wet in the sports world. It announced an MLB version of Hard Knocks with the Boston Red Sox heading into next MLB season. But this diversity in sports content that Netflix announced might have to be carried over in the rest of the streaming platforms because it's a great way to maintain and entice the subscribers that they already have to stay, but it's also a great way to gain more subscribers. And as I said earlier, I'll be providing updates on these new companies. You can follow me on my Twitter at Mike Lamorte TV to stay tuned for more updates. Disney, no, they are looking very impressive after announcing that multi-billion-dollar stake in Fortnite, Epic Games to be exact. So they're definitely going to be a stock you want to pay attention to headed into this new year. Guys?
Michael, thanks so much. We will know that you will continue to keep us updated on this developing story. And we do want to note here that Fox is the only company out of those three that does not even have a streaming service yet.
Yeah, and you know what? I will agree that it is frustrating trying to watch a game, trying to find something, and you don't know where you can find it. So I kind of like that they're truncating all that. I mean, like, is that something that you've kind of frustration that you've dealt with too? It
definitely has, especially for the people. If you're paying for NBC on cable, then they're also asking you for pay to Peacock separately. And it's not just NBC, it's happening with all of them. For NHL games, they're also on ESPN Plus and ABC. It's everything that is going to be switching over, so for people to pay two prices instead of just paying one. So hopefully this will make it less, and you will only have to pay for that.
Yeah, those costs are going up because you're going to have to pay for all these different services for different games, different sports, and yeah, I mean,
it could be the same sport and just one weekend on one, and then the next one on the streaming service.
Yeah. It's a little bit silly to me.
Yes, definitely. Well, moving on, the New York Fed has reported that credit card fraud has surged this year, indicating, quote, financial stress. With more on this, as market shares analyst Peter Barry. Peter, thanks for joining us.
Peyton, Zach, it's great to be on 20 minutes after the closing bell. So the economy has been steadily growing, but one thing that has been exponentially growing is credit card debt. Americans have $1.13 trillion in credit card debt, and interest rates are the highest they've been since 1994, nearly in 30 years here. But the interest rate is really how a bank or a lender will make their money back from someone who's loaning them money. So the more borrowers are late on payments, and people are taking out more than they can afford, which is driving up the credit card debt exponentially. And most banks have to calculate that some people will not pay them back. Some people may be late on their payments or maybe even file for bankruptcy and they can't really pay it back. But let's take a look at a CNBC graph that from a New York Fed report released just last week. Credit card interest rates have topped out more than 20%. You see in 2020, they've taken a big dip. More people were doing we're out of work, more inflation, and really just uncertain where the economy will go. But we see in 2023, quarter four, a huge spike. It took a huge spike, and most of these delinquencies for credit card debt, which is in 90 days or later that some people can't pay their credit card debt, 6.4% of them were delinquencies. That's up 4% in 2022's last quarter. But one of the main reasons for this debt trend is credit card interest rates at their highest level in 1994 were at 21.5%. As I said, most people were worried about inflation and the economic uncertainty, but more people are starting to get back into their jobs as well. But let's take a look at why you should pay off your credit card debt. It really correlates with credit score. So say if you're taking out a loan for a car or a house, all these three corporations behind me, right here, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, they all look at your credit score and evaluate your credit score. How fast you could pay back a debt, how well you could pay back a debt. But for the foreseeable future, we could possibly see credit card debt taking a dip as more people get into work, but what comes up must go down. And if you really want to attack your credit card debt, you have to pay off as much of the balances as you can. Peyton, Zach, I'm going to send it back to you as we could possibly see credit card debt drop here.
Peter, thank you. It's definitely a story that's having an effect on a lot of Americans, so thank you for your coverage. One of the biggest broadcasters for advertisers is this Sunday. Also one of the most expensive. How much have prices for these commercials changed over the years? Stay tuned.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who wants to care of you.
Welcome back to Market Shares, and it's no surprise that one of the biggest moments for advertisers interested in the Super Bowl isn't actually the Super Bowl itself. Companies such as FanDuel and YouTube are trying to make their impact in the last commercial break before kickoff, a big marketing point before viewers get flooded with 30-second commercial spots.
The price of a commercial in that pre-kickoff break has soared to as much as $4 million. Some companies are even paying $6 to $7 million for just 30 seconds of TV time. Since the first Super Bowl, ad prices have increased to over 16,000%. Zach, okay, when you're watching the Super Bowl, are you watching for the game, are you watching for the commercials, or are you watching for Taylor Swift?
Well, I mean, I'm watching for all of it, but I know, you know, everyone's got those Super Bowl parties on Sunday, and I'd say 50% of every year, the people who are there, maybe more, maybe like 70% of the people who are there are only watching for the commercials and the halftime show.
Yes, yeah. Usher's gonna do the halftime show. It's gonna be pretty exciting with him doing, you know, his full discography. It should be pretty fascinating. But I would say I'm a commercial watcher for sure. I like to see the cameos from all the you know, famous people, and I think that's one of the things that's really driving up, that's jacking up those prices, is getting, you know, celebrities in these commercials.
Yeah, I will never forget the Apple commercial, one of the most famous of all time from the Super Bowl. But hopefully we'll see another commercial like that or two that will be one for all time. But only time will tell. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Market Shares. So make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News, and like us on Facebook. I'm Zach Richter.
And I'm Peyton Spellacy. Have a great night, Syracuse, and join us next week.